Joining me now from New York to talk more about the developments between the United States and India is Michael Wildes. He is a former federal prosecutor and an expert in immigration law. Michael, give me your take on all of this.
Well, it's interesting. Who's watching the watchers? If somebody does something wrong and the government's going to hold you responsible, then the question ultimately is who's going to be watching the people that are taking her into custody. Simply put, she was now being charged with fraud and perhaps not only visa fraud, but perhaps exploiting an employee of hers. And the question is whether or not the government went too far in their strip search. There is a functional immunity that certain low-level diplomats have. And unless this was a serious enough breach, a crime of violence or something where she was either on a suicide watch or there was a risk of violence or a cavity search was necessitated to see if there was a weapon or protect themselves, it may have been overreaching by the government. Either way, it seems that there's impropriety on everyone's shoulders and somebody has to make sure that the watchers acted properly too.
Michael, once again, do you think they went too far?
I don't think that they went too far based on what I'm hearing right now. It may be overkill to do a strip search on somebody, but if they felt that the crime was serious enough or that they had reasonable belief that she was secreting either a weapon and they were at some point concerned for their safety, there would be justification. On the other hand, the truth is a person like this should be taken into custody. They gave her every dignity by not handcuffing her and may have been overreaching in the way that they searched her. So we need more facts. We need more information. I'm more concerned that in the obfuscation of what happened, we're not looking at the fact that this young lady is actually accused of visa fraud and exploiting somebody. And that fraud and that crime in not paying somebody a proper wage undermines the policy considerations that we have here, that even aliens, people that are visitors to this country, need to be treated with dignity, and that was not accorded to her employee. The fact that she was stripped or strip search of those privileges and delicacies may be insulting, but it also may be appropriate. We have to wait to see how the Marshal Service defends itself.
Well, Michael, you're there in New York, and I was mentioning to Nathan King that we do hear a lot of stories. I was back there, I think it was in 2000, 2001, and I talked to a lot of domestic workers who said that they were basically like slaves. They couldn't get out of these homes. Their passports were taken away from them. They worked for diplomats. How do we weigh this balancing act of diplomatic immunity and yet so-called abuses?
I practice immigration law by trade. We do visas and green cards, and I have a very wonderful relationship with our companion ambassadors and consulate generals throughout the United States, particularly in the New York corridor. It's a very delicate balance that we have. But these are ambassadors, these are diplomats, these are career people who have public service in mind. And when they breach host government laws, when they actually would exploit somebody who works in their household, we have to give them a moment to actually have a day in court for her to state her side of the record, but we have to protect those that are vulnerable too. Perhaps in her country, it's okay to hire somebody at a lower wage, but in this country, if she made representations on a visa application form and didn't keep to those, or if she didn't treat somebody in her household with the dignity that she would expect herself to be treated, and the breach here of the Marshal Service has to also be looked at separately, we have to look at that. We also have to look how India is now reacting. If they're going to pull away protection from U.S. Marines at U.S. Embassy installations in India, they're overreacting. Everybody overreacting to something here becomes a story about a story and becomes more dangerous and delicate than it actually was.
Everyone needs to take a deep breath, I guess, is what I'm hearing from you. Michael Wildes joining us in New York. Thank you so much.